Good day. Welcome everyone to another edition of the How We Got Here Genealogy Happy Hour. I'm Brian Nash, and I'm going to guide you through the fascinating world of family history. Whether you're joining live or you're catching us on the replay, I'm thrilled to have you here. And tonight we're going to dive a little into documenting your family stories, some advice for starting your family tree. So, as always, I encourage you to grab your favorite beverage. I have mine here. Well, not my favorite beverage, as you can see. I'd rather be drinking Guinness, but I do have some water to keep me hydrated. So, yeah, grab your favorite beverage. Get comfortable and get ready to embark on a journey through time as we explore the essential steps to uncovering and preserving your family's unique story. And remember, this is an Ask Me Anything session, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat, as well as I have a form that you can use if you want, if there's some more detail you need to give me that I will use for a future live stream or a future video. I take questions from there, and then you can always find that on any of my videos. In fact, if you go to just about any video on my lives on my channel, and I'm just going to show you where. I'm just going to pick a video here. So if you go to any video on my channel and you just go down to the description, you'll have to hit the show more, and I'm going to show you here. That's not doing what I want, so just 1 second here. Let me see here. So yeah, if you just click on the video there and any of my videos, you'll see there's a spot that says if you have a question you're looking for an answer to about then or anything in any family history question, fill out the form. So basically this is a Google form. Fill it out and I will try to answer your question. Okay. So yeah, I want to welcome you all here. So let's get started and let's get ready to roll. So let's start things off by exploring why documenting your family history is so important. Now, preserving family stories, it connects us to our roots and helps us to understand. Helps us understand our heritage. It gives us a sense of identity and continuity. That's a strange word. It's not something you use every day in this sense, but it really does. By connecting with our family, you really get to have those shared experiences and with your ancestors, and you attach yourself to history. Now, I've discovered a lot of things in my own family that I never knew before I started on this journey of searching. What about you? Have you uncovered any surprising stories in your family history? Share those in the chats or in the comments. And I'm just going to switch some things around here on my screens so I can check and see what questions are coming in. Yeah, so So how can sharing your family stories, because one of the things they can do is they can actually impact future generations. Now, by preserving these stories, we're creating a legacy for future generations. We're providing them a rich tapestry of where they come from and the struggles and triumphs of their ancestors. It's like we're giving them a roadmap to their heritage. So if you've ever shared your history with your younger members of your family, how did they react? If you haven't, what are some of the stories you'd like to share with them? Again, let me know in the comments. I know in my own experience with my kids, they're not really excited about family history as much as I am, but I have from time to time been able to get stories in by relating them to them, my kids, by relating to their individual interests or their shared experiences. And for me, it's important that we connect to our roots. The reason is, well, it helps enrich our present, but really informs us of who we are. Now, my father, he grew up in the military, so I grew up not really knowing where I was from. Sure, I could tell you where I was born. I was born in Montreal, but I left there before I was 2 years old, and I really had no family connections. And from then on, I was moving every 3 years or so. So it used to be when you asked me where I was from, I used to say, name a year. Or my wife, when people asked her where I was from, she would just say Canada. And it was when I left my teens and just in my late teens and my early 20s, I was really trying to get that answer. I knew where my parents were from, but I wanted to find out really, because I didn't have any roots of my own, because I had no place to sit down. I didn't have a home that I could return to. I wanted to have that idea of a more deep idea of who I am and really how I got here. So this gave me really a keen interest in learning about my family history. It's really, it comes down to answering that question. So I'd be able to answer that question, where are you from? And it gives you, learning your family history gives you a newfound context when you're hearing stories, and you're hearing history, and it gives you a newfound respect for what our ancestors had to go through. I feel more connected to my heritage, to history, by learning about my family and their place in it. Now, remember, feel free to ask questions, or you can share your own stories in the chat or comments. So we sort of touched on quickly about the importance of documenting your family's stories. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty on how to start your family tree. The first thing you want to do is gather any existing documents and records. This can include birth certificates, marriage licenses, and old photographs. Do you have any family heirlooms or documents that have been passed down from generations? Next, talk to your family members. Collect oral histories from your parents, grandparents, and any other relatives you have. It's sometimes something that people miss when they're doing their family history. They get into getting all these records and they miss the opportunities to ask the questions of the most recent generations. I know myself, I find I've wasted lots of opportunities not asking grandparents a little bit more to find out a little bit more about their growing up. When your parents and grandparents are gone, that's when you kind of miss them, and you realize that you've lost that opportunity, and you missed out on some treasures. And really, you got it when you do this. Start organizing. I did a great video a little while ago about organizing your family tree and your research. You want to do it from getting the tools that you're going to use from the places, and you start organizing so you're attacking it with purpose. So this is one really great thing about computers and the internet is it's really easy to source a lot of things. It's also easy to keep where these sources are. I recommend don't just copy the URL because those can change, but actually copy anything that you can find about a record. So if you're looking on you're looking at a site and you're looking at a record, don't just get the URL, find out if there's any type of record number, where the record actually came from, document all that. It's really simple. You can do it as simple as if you're saving the image, you just also save a text file, or you can even in the details of the image, you can put some information. I really, when I organize my images and my records, I do them in a manner similar to I do my family tree. I start with my two parents' families, and then so any pictures I have of my dad's side, I have my Nash side, and which would be his father as well, and then his mother's Orion. So anything under Nash, I put under Nash. Anything under Ryan, I put under Ryan, and then I keep going up one level. As I make subdirectories within the subdirectories for the families they belong to. It's just my own way of helping keep organized. So you really need to, though, make sure you're checking your sources. I'm going to say this a few times throughout as we discuss this, because you want to make sure you're getting the accurate information. So what resources can you use to help you get started? There's a lot of online databases and genealogy websites that can help you. Some popular ones are Ancestry, MyHeritage, Family Search. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. I really like WikiTree. It's a collaborative tree. It's probably my favorite resource to use. And the people that use it and the community that is built around it, they're a great bunch of people. But you have those online sources, and then you have the particular ones for your regions. For instance, with a lot of my family being from Nova Scotia, I use the Nova Scotia Vital Statistics. I use Scotland's People quite a bit for searching information on my ancestors in Scotland. I have a myriad of sites I use for Irish records. But when you're doing that, don't forget though about local archives. Local archives and libraries are actually a really great resource. You can find a few things on their online presence. You can find sometimes records that you won't find elsewhere, but when you actually go there, you'll be able to find even more. It can sometimes take a little more legwork, but usually when you're there, there's helpful people, and they'll help you to get in, try to dig down into what you're finding. And often they might have genealogies that people have already done on certain members of your family, which can help then connect further. And those archives would have newspapers. Those local archives would have local newspapers, which are a wonderful source because you can look through community events. You can look through obituaries. A lot of newspapers used to, especially in small towns, have when people that are related or visiting people from out of town, they'll mention it. So I've been able to find out through that where I've been able to find certain cousins and uncles and aunts to the multiple generations that I can find out where they went to after they left home by using that resource. Now, yeah, you also want to organize the records you get. You can organize them on paper. I really recommend it. I have like a binder for each each of my 4 grandparents, and basically I follow each of the lines that are attached to them, where I keep the things that I need in there, the different records. I keep printed copies of things, of actual physical things, because it's great to have it online, but the things you can have actual physical copies are even better. But any of these websites that are available also usually have some way of recording software. MyHeritage has a great tool. It's called Family Tree Builder. It's a piece of software. It's really easy for organizing your family tree. And if you're doing your research on MyHeritage, which has a lot of great resources there, like all these ones have different resources and collections that they have. Family Search is completely free, so that's one of the best ones to use, though you have to be leery about when you're connecting to other people's trees. In any of these, you have to really want to make sure you're sourcing and checking the sources. Just check and see, make sure everybody's hearing me, nobody's having a problem, because I'm using a new mic that I haven't had a chance to test out. So I'm going to actually just test something quickly right here. And well, not there. I'm going to go here. I'm just going to test this and see if I can hear myself. Yes. Okay. So my mic is working. Good. Okay. So yeah, my Ancestry, MyHeritage, Family Search, great for, they have tools you can use for actually recording your family tree. Now, when you're looking at MyHeritage and Wikitree too, Wikitree, I can't stress enough to use it. It's free. It's collaborative, and the people are really good too at making sure they check sources. They have a code of conduct that you have to agree to, which is really great. So with MyHeritage and Ancestry, they also have DNA packages that you can order, and you can get information about those. Now, you watch on YouTube channels here, you've probably seen them. I've even done 1 or 2 myself, and I have a couple planned coming up. When people get those DNA test results, they're often just looking at the ethnicity records, ethnicity estimates. That's basically telling you what percentage they are estimating that you are, of whether it's Scottish, German, French, Austrian, whatever. If you're from different indigenous populations, they sometimes have groups. Now, that's what you see people using and highlighting when they're on YouTube, but there's so much more. They actually have on that connections. They were able, by taking your DNA, match you up with other people that have contributed to DNA, and often you can find cousins and people that will help you expand and learn more about your own family. I really like MyHeritage for that, because I know my family is mostly the family that came before they came to Canada. We're all from Ireland and Scotland, a few, possibly a few English people, but we won't talk about that. Anyways, but I've been able to make connections with people in Europe that are 3rd, 4th, 5th cousins that I've been able to connect with. And it's helped me prove that, oh, this person that I've researched and I believe, because I could never be 100% sure, since they have a connection, they have valid there, and we're both connecting. It can help get you going in the right direction. I don't know, if you taken a DNA test? Which ones have you done? I've done Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, and Ancestry. I haven't done 23andMe. 23andMe, it's really, you got to look at the benefits of different ones. So it's one that's used by a lot of North Americans, and I know the North American extent for the most part of my family, and it's their point before they got to North America I'm really trying to dig more into. So my heritage has become extra important because of that. So when you're looking at historical records, there's a few ones that are really important for you. Census records are a good one, just because they can help narrow down things, help you learn more about the bigger family, help you learn about the communities as well that your families were involved in. But your main ones are your birth, your marriage, and your death, the BMD. And those ones, they are really good because they usually, well, they tell you dates when specific events happened. They tell you relationships. So on death certificates, often they'll have, besides having information about the death that occurred, will have information about your parents' names, your mother's maiden name. Same as marriage records will have those type of things. Birth records obviously have information on the individual and their parents. Marriage and death, I in a way, I value them a lot more than the birth certificate. You can have sometimes naturalization records, immigration records for your ancestors' moves. You can find church records. Church records are an amazing source, especially if you can get some of the older sources, because often the churches recorded things before the government started doing. So you'll have baptismal records, you'll have marriage bans, all these things before marriage registrations and birth certificates and birth registrations were done by the government. And looking at church records, even looking at if you're able to find minutes of, for instance, if you're Presbyterian session meetings or congregational meetings of your different congregations, you might be able to find information about your ancestors contained within those. Military records are amazing if you can get them, especially older military records, because the militaries run an order and they like to record things, so much so that you'll often find exactly how many pieces of ammunition an ancestor might have been given, or what their pay was. You can find all kinds of interesting things, where they served, if they got caught doing anything, and inviting in the liquor too much and they wound up in a little trouble, or you can find all those things. The military kept records, I want to say religiously, but like a well-run military organization. And a lot of these records of all those types can be found online. Sometimes you'll have to go to the sources to get more, especially church records. Not all church records are kept online. Family Search has tried to, through their contacts, gather a lot of these records and digitize them and index them. That's the important thing. And then a lot of these other older records are not indexed. So, for instance, if you're looking at church records, it might not have an index of exactly where of every person that you can just type, find me Bob Smith, because I'm looking for that relative. But you might be able to know if Bob Smith was born in March of 1893. I'm going to look at March to June. I'm going to start looking for baptismal records. Or I know that he was married to his wife was Jane. I don't know what her maiden name is, but I know they were married in whatever year. You might be able to search, and if you know the marriage dates, start searching for there and looking around them to be able to find it. It's a little more work sometimes, but often it's well worth it. So one of the biggest problems, though, and one of the biggest discouragements that people have when they're doing research is what we call brick walls. And that's basically when you've reached a point you can't go any further. There's a lot of things you can do to help break down brick walls. You can reevaluate your sources. So you might want to look for more sources, expand your search. One good thing is you could maybe go from looking just at the straight up horizontal line of your family, and then start looking at some of the straight up vertical, and start looking at some of the horizontal lines to get uncles and aunts, because it's possible from then there might be records that you can then regroup and build back up. One of the other things I've found really helpful when I've hit a brick wall, and I've kind of I think I've done all the research I can, besides talking with other people, sometimes just taking a break from that particular line of research, and going and doing something else. I've had that happen, that because I've been researching something else has then clicked in that's helped me to break down a brick wall I had elsewhere. A good example of that is I was having issues with finding on my great grandmother's side, my maternal great grandmother, my maternal grandmother's mother, specifically her side of the family. I was having a hard time finding her parents, just because it was a very common name in the area that they grew up. And I was just completely doing something else and working on some other records. I went and I was cleaning out my grandmother's basement, and I managed to find some photos. I found a photo of her grandfather written in my grandmother's handwriting. It would have been from when she was younger, because this was a picture from the early 20th century, before my grandmother was even born. And she had written grandfather Charlie, and then she wrote the son that was on there, Uncle Dan. And that helped me, because I knew what her grandfather's name was, but I didn't know which family, because there was a few Charles McGinnises in the area, and a few that had the two children I knew were my great grandmother Catherine and her sister Florence, or Flora. So it was able to help me now find an uncle's name, and from there I was able to narrow it down and make sure I had the right family, and then move on. I've actually moved past that, and some of the next generations in that family came a lot easier. The other problem is often records aren't there. So you have to look for alternatives. You might not find your birth certificates because, again, certain places record them certain times. The other thing people need to remember, sometimes the records aren't there, not because they were lost, just because they were never there, and not in the sense that they were never created, but you're looking in the wrong place. Possibly you're thinking a great grandparent was born in a certain place because they lived there all their life, or your great grandparent was born someplace and their parent lived in that community all their life, and both their parents had lived in that community all their life, and you can't find a marriage record. It is possible that they did not get married in that area. I ran across a relative that him and his wife were not from Boston. They got married down in Boston. Neither of them really lived in Boston for any long period that I can tell. He was from Cape Breton and she was from Prince Edward Island. And they weren't married in either place. They were married in Boston. It still happens today. People get married. The families had known each other apparently from back in Scotland. There had been some connections, well, at least within the communities. But I would not have been able to find a marriage record if I looked, even though I knew that the fellow that was born in Cape Breton had relocated to Prince Edward Island, lived there. His kids were born there. I would not have been able to find a marriage record in Prince Edward Island. So sometimes you just have to realize that it might not be where you think it is, and sometimes it's just lost. So how do you ensure your accuracy? One of the things you need to do is just records, and you also have to accept the fact that sometimes you will be wrong. Sometimes because of the information you have, you might have a wrong record or a wrong person connected. This happened to me recently. Speaking on that side of the family, my grandmother's I was looking for a particular person, and their last name was McKinnon. I was expecting to find one of their people where they were born in Scotland. I knew how old they were. I knew by their death record that they were born in Scotland. I didn't know where in Scotland, but I was able to find somebody in the community that had the same name, same approximate age, and I was able to find a record that somebody had connected them to in Scotland, and I assumed this was the same person, and I was wrong, because it turned out that this person, when I got putting my family tree together, and I was had somebody reach out for me that's part of that greater family in that area, and he said, no, this person actually, he was a lifetime bachelor. He had no kids, so it wouldn't be anybody that I would be descended from, so it would not be this this person that I thought. So luckily I hadn't started doing a lot of research into and getting excited and getting things connected to the person in Scotland on that connection. But I was able to quickly say, okay, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm human. I'm going with the best information I have, and a lot of it, as much as you try to be accurate, you try to gather information, you try to make sure you have multiple points where you match. And again, this time I had a name, I had an approximate age and birth, and I knew they were born in Scotland, and I knew the area that they lived in. But it just wound up, this person isn't who I thought they were. So yeah, you just have to kind of accept it. When you make a lot of mistakes, one of my favorite mistakes I laugh about on my dad's side, my third great grandfather, my third and my second great grandfather. My third great grandfather, he had a soda pop, basically, for lack of a better term, factory in Halifax, and his son was listed in the Halifax directory in 1870. I think it was 1873, if I remember directory. He was listed as a cordial manufacturer, and for some reason, I don't know why I was thinking this, and I lived at PI at this point, and I knew Anna Green Gables. I've heard of cordial, but I was thinking of it as the meaning of friendly, somebody that people like, very polite, welcoming. So I was wondering, well, that's an unusual thing that I mentioned. And then it took me about a year or two, and just really talking to somebody and looking, and I knew that he was part of his father's business, making soda pops, but it didn't clue into me that it's cordial. There's another name that they would use for these seltzer type drinks. So yeah, that's sort of an easy mistake, not a record mistake, but it's a fun little mistake that I kind of laugh that I made, that I actually was thinking and following for some time. So now, when you get all this information, there's lots of things you can do with it. Some people will create a whole website where they share this information. They'll create books, family books. There's lots of resources. Some people will just keep the records, just the straight records online, through the MyHeritage or Ancestry, wherever their tree is. They'll just have those type of records. But a lot of people want more. So having a website, having a book, gives you an opportunity to then include more information than just the records, the dates and times. You can include stories, you can include anecdotes. One thing I like to do is I like to research certain periods and the communities, and the history of the communities that my ancestors lived in at that time. So I have an idea when I'm putting things in context and thinking about the story, what it was like. Creating a book or a website lets you add these documents and these photos that you've been able to gather and put them in and give them context and tell the stories behind those as well. Yeah, and for doing that, it's really important. Like I mentioned before, with those binders I have on my rugs, I have printed copies of different records, but I also make sure I have digitized. Digitized makes it easy to share, easy to save. And that's where I got a lot of my records, but I still print them up. Again, you want to make sure that when you do that, you're preserving them, keeping them. Any actual real records you have, if they're older, you might not want to scan them, but you might be able to take a picture of them depending on how brittle they are. You want to do that, especially older documents. Oh, great. Yeah, so if you have older documents, doing the camera as opposed to just the scanning, it will help preserve them. And then some people are just looking to gather up information so they can have for a family reunion. And again, maybe having that book or that website will help them be able to put that information. Doing something on a website like Wikitree where it's collaborative, you can have relatives share their information and their connections as well. And then some people might just have a Facebook group of their family where they're sharing stories. So I'm just sort of want to wrap up a little about that and get to answering any of your questions. It's, again, it's important to preserve this because when you're preserving it, you're saving it for future generations. You're helping people to learn about you. You're helping them learn about your family that came before you. And genealogy is not an interest that necessarily passed from generation to generation. Sometimes it skips a couple, but the more information you can have, the more you make it easier on your descendants to start searching. So one of the things I usually do, again, this is my how we got here, Genealogy Happy Hour. I like to encourage people to ask questions throughout. And near the end of it, I have what I call last call. So when I do that, this is sort of my last call for questions. I'm going to give it a few minutes, ring my bell and call last call, and ask any questions you have. Share any stories you want. I'm here to try to help. And if there's a particular thing you need help with, let me know, and I'll try to get you an answer, or tell you how you can find that answer.
Let's call!
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
Oh.
So yeah, anybody have any questions? Really like to answer them. Thanks LML, sorry, for watching. If there's not any questions, I'm going to wrap this up. It's getting 14 minutes to the hour. I've done these sometimes. I've done them for half an hour, and I've gone on for an hour or two. I'm trying these out at different times. As we noticed earlier, there's a lot of noise, so I was sort of doing them a little later than I had been. This week, I actually went back 2 hours. I started 8 instead of 10 I had done for the last few weeks before. Let me know in the chat and the comments if there's a good time for you that you'd be able to watch regularly. Let me know. And there's in all my videos, you'll see there's a link there that you can ask a question. I encourage people to use this. This gives me ideas for videos. Also, I might try to answer it maybe in a future live stream as well. So if there's nothing else, I want to say thank you for watching, everybody, and you have a great day until next time, and keep searching for your ancestors.
Things change. Farewell, my friend. Things change. Farewell, my friend. Farewells, they're not forever. They mean I'll miss you till we meet again. Things change, farewell, my friend. Things change, farewell, my friend.